All right, welcome back in here to Live and Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. Thank you so much for joining us. I do want to get you out to news we've been following in full as we are now learning the suspect in the Idaho student murder stabbings, Brian Kohberger. That trial will be moved, a judge rules. I want to give you some details about this. Big news here on Live Now from Fox as a judge agrees to move the trial for the suspect of those Idaho student stabbings as Judge's order was unsealed on Monday, moving the trial to an unspecified new location, possibly in a larger county, and finding the massive media coverage of the case could taint the local jury in and around Moscow. Of course, we're following it here very closely on Live Now from Fox. I do want to bring into the conversation legal analyst Jacqueline Goodman. Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining us. And we thought this might be the case, that a judge would move it just based on a lot of factors. What went into this decision, and what's your initial reaction to what they decided?
Exactly. It's not much of a surprise. I think a lot of legal commentators expected this ruling. The ruling was that the defense showed a reasonable likelihood that the defendant's right to a fair trial may be compromised as a result of the incredible amount of pretrial publicity. And when you add the fact that this is a small county, it's a college community, you know, the defendant has a right to a trial of his peers, or to a jury of his peers, I should say. And this would have been a jury essentially of victims or people that really kind of identified with alleged victims in this case. He looked to the social media and really he talked in his own ruling about how undisputed the evidence was, that there was so much vitriol and so much anger. More than 52% of the people who were polled indicated that they favored the death penalty for Brian Kohberger prior to him even being found guilty. And so, you know, there was really a higher percentage of people who would just assume that he was guilty. But lots of people who were already in favor of the death penalty for him. There were threats in case that there had been an acquittal. And so there was a real worry that jurors would feel an additional layer of pressure to find guilt in the case. I think it was kind of the only ruling that the judge could come to, unless he was expecting to redo it on appeal. So
yeah, that is a very good point. A very community that everyone kind of knows everyone in that. And the next question, as we know that the judge will move this trial, is where? Where could this trial eventually end up?
We think the greatest contender here is probably Ada County, where Boise sits. But it could go into a lot of different areas of the state. Boise is, as you know, about 300 miles from where the trial right now is sitting. So it goes really to the state Supreme Court and to the sort of bureaucracy that makes up the business of the court. And they'll go into a process where they'll decide based on lots of factors, including logistics and the size of the receiving county, to determine the best county for this case.
You know, that is a very good point, moving it somewhere else. And of course, the judge ruled that based on the decision in the totality of factors. And let's get into that a little bit, because you mentioned maybe an impartial jury that they need to find. It might not have been found where in Latah County it was. Can you talk about just the national attention, the media presence, the courthouse that they will need to offer for this venue? How much of a factor was that to making this ruling to move it?
It was probably the most important factor. I mean, listen, the argument made by the prosecutor, and the judge said these were good arguments. The argument made by the prosecutor was that this case has garnered so much attention that it didn't matter if it was held in, you know, New York or Florida or in California. It didn't matter where it went. Everybody's heard of this case, and everybody had important feelings or strong feelings about the case and about the guilt of Brian Kohberger. So the argument from the prosecutor is it doesn't matter where you take it, you're going to have the same kind of vitriol as you would if you held it in Latah County. The thing is that the folks in these other counties really don't feel like they're personally aggrieved as much as you'd find in this very small 39,000 person college community in Latah County. So I think the court's going to weigh lots of different factors and try to find a place that is sort of the Goldilocks of all venues. You know, where does it make the most sense? Where is there a possibility that you could find jurors who are not already dug into their beliefs about the case, even if they've been exposed to the news? And where is it that logistically we can bring witnesses and they're going to take into consideration the distance that would have to be traveled even by the alleged victims' parents and family?
No, that is a very good point. The proximity to this location in Latah County could be next. And you also mentioned just the families of some of these victims traveling, and that is going to be a concern. Let's talk about the judge. Does this mean that there is going to be a new judge sitting overseeing this trial? And if so, how could that impact this trial as a whole?
What an interesting question. We don't know the answer to that. Generally speaking, the judge does not travel with the case. The lawyers do. So the prosecution travels, the defense travels with the case, but usually the judge doesn't. In this case, though, that could be, it's really up to the Judicial Council in Idaho. And so they'll decide whether or not this is a trial that keeps John Judge with it. Chances are, though, it probably won't. It will probably go to a new judge, which again may impact the timing of the trial.
Correct. Yeah, that was going to be my next question, because it is set for June of 2025, and you want to get this thing underway. You want to get it going with the jury selection that is going to take quite a bit of time. Does that put it in question? Do they delay it based on this? Is that where this next leads?
Arguably, there could be delay by virtue of the transfer to a new county, and that was one of the arguments that the prosecutor made. But truly, there are other motions to be had. There's other things to be done. And so the fact that it is moved to another county will probably, in the bigger scheme of things, probably not change the timing of the trial all that much. I mean, we have a motion, I think, currently pending to take death off the table. So there are many other motions, I think, that are going to be in the offing before this case is ready to see a jury. So, moving the venue is probably not going to be the biggest issue when it comes to timing.
Yeah, and let's talk about the jury. My final question for you, because the jury pool in Latah County would have to be certainly massive, a lot of people, but even outside of that county, it's going to be large, in the hundreds, maybe thousands of people. What does that jury look like? What is the process going to be like now it's in a new venue?
Once they get to that new venue, wherever that might be, they're really going to be thinking about asking questions. They'll potentially do jury questionnaires to determine how much exposure the potential jurors have had to the information in this case. And not only the exposure about whether you know about the case, but have you already had beliefs that are solidified, or are you open-minded about the evidence that you're about to see in this case? And do you feel personally aggrieved by this crime, or do you think that you could be just as fair in this case as you could in any other case and listen to the evidence and rule based on the law? And so those kinds of questions are going to be put to these potential jurors. And hopefully in a large jury pool, you're going to find a lot more possibility of finding 12 people to put in that box and give an honest and fair and impartial reading of that evidence.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why the judge ruled that they will change the venue, unspecified location of where it could be. All right, Jacqueline, thank you again. I appreciate your insight here on Live Now from Fox. We'll continue to follow this story very, very closely.